I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lake Lure Town Council, July 11th, 2017. If you'd please all rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day and, albeit hot, for being with us this day. Thank you for all your blessings. Guide us as we make decisions for the benefit of the community. Help us to listen and communicate effectively in doing your work here on earth. We ask these things in thy holy name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, item number 2 is to adopt the agenda. And Stephen,
Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment to the agenda. I'd like to add an item right before the adjournment. So it'd be the last item before adjournment. It'd be a motion to enter into closed session in accordance with General Statute 143-318.11 sub A sub 3 for attorney-client privilege.
Okay, so amended. Any other thoughts? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda amendment?
I'll make that motion that we approve the agenda with the added item under the closed session.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mary Ann. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Under item number 3, I'd like to give a resolution honoring the memory of William Keller. Maylene, if you come forward. Just want to read this.
Why don't you come here in front of the seal?
In God we trust?
In God
Yes.
we
That's
trust.
good. Okay, that's a good one. This is a resolution honoring the memory of William Oliver Keller. Whereas William Oliver Keller was born July 2nd, 1925 in Gilkey, North Carolina. And whereas in 1943, Mr. Keller joined the U.S. Navy and went on to become a seaman first class and a Normandy D-Day survivor. And whereas William Oliver Keller was a lifetime member of the VFW and the American Legion, and under sponsorship of the American Legion, he was instrumental in establishing the first fire department in the Lake Lure area. And whereas William Oliver Keller was a successful businessman here in Lake Lure and surrounding communities, working for Chimney Rock Lumber in Chimney Rock Park, owner and operator of the Valley Handcrafts and Woodland Picnic Park and Souvenir Shop, co-owner of the Little Beaver Campground, and as an associate of Keller's Real Estate, and then retiring as a Lake Lure postmaster in the 1980s after 20 years of service. And whereas William Oliver Keller was active in the Lake Lure Civic Club and served on the various town boards and committees, including the Lake Lure ABC Board and Lake Lure Town Council. Whereas Police Commissioner, Mr. Keller helped to obtain the Lake Lure Police Department's first radio system. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lake Lure Town Council desires to honor the memory of William Keller for his contribution to the town of Lake Lure and to recognize his place in the history of the town. Adopted this day, 11th day of July. I keep wanting to say January for some reason. Never can't come too soon. Anyway, thank you very much for your husband's
Thank you,
service.
Bob.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to make that official that we adopt that resolution honoring the memory of William Oliver Keller.
I'll second it.
Okay, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 4, town manager communication.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got a few reports. Donna, do you want to start out for us, please?
got a quick update from Powerhouse Mechanical this afternoon. They finished the turbine work today. The runner shaft is 95% complete on the machining and will be going to the plater by the end of next week. They've started machining the bottom side of the links and will be going to the platers at the same time as the shaft. Bushings and washers will be completed by next weekend, and wicket gates will be sandblasted and primed around that same time. After they sandblasted the head gate, they found quite a few cracks, especially one around that was completely broken around a hole where the bolt goes. So they're having to repair it, so it's gonna take them a little while to get that fixed, but they're making good work. We should have parts back to us by the end of the month.
How long do you think it'll take you to assemble those and put them in?
A lot less time than it did to take them out. We're just rough guess, probably a month.
Okay.
How are we doing power generation wise? Is it cutting?
We've done really well with just a big generator. We've had so much rain and all these storms every
Good.
day. We're running quite a bit. We're trying to limit our off-peak time, but we're still running off-peak now because we have so much water. And these pop-up storms, it's hard to guess, you know, but we've made good money the last 2 months, and I suspect we'll make good money. We get paid again on the 24th from Duke, and I suspect it'll be about the same as the last 2 months have been.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention also the legislation that's been moving through and actually has moved through. It's been adopted. You know, we talked a lot about House Bill 589 and its effect on small hydro operators like the town of Lake Lure. We were successful in getting some change to the legislation that was proposed. However, we were not successful in getting changes made to the capacity credits section of the bill. So I also included in your packet here or at your desk the letter from Craig DeBrue, who's with us tonight, that talks about sort of their perceived impacts to HB 589 in the town of Lake Lure. So I'd invite you to read that over, and also the email that I sent you earlier last week from Andrew Givings from Cardinal Energy about the impact. And you'll be hearing more about this as time moves on towards spring. Let's see, in your packet is the update from Lake Lure Classical Academy, the improvements agreement. As you know, we'll be meeting soon, I believe, is it August? Is that right? I'm sorry? So August 2nd, to discuss the update and some of those provisions in that agreement. Point Broadband, as you know, we've been working over the last month to get an agreement together about using the water tank as a point for Point Broadband, and we have an agreement that's been sent to the town attorney for his review, and we hope to have that to you by August. The Yacht Island Sewer Project, I've talked to several of you about that. For all practical purposes, that project is now on hold. Some of the community members, citizens in that area, weren't happy with the large amount of construction costs that were proposed. They've decided to sort of pull back from that project, and so unless we get 50% of those property owners to agree to that project, that construction project, it's just not going to happen at this point. So we'll continue to work on that, and I'll keep you updated. But just so you know, that project is on hold indefinitely until we come up with another plan.
Ron, right quick, is that the type of a project that a municipal service district could be established for that area? And would it lower those assessments over the period of time that that's established for those folks?
It could. Some costs are higher for municipal governments, some are not. The largest cost to this project was actually putting in those pumps and getting the sewer to the road. Which they would have to do also. So that I believe in itself was about $140,000, and so that's going to be a significant cost to anybody who does it.
For how many pumps?
There was 10 or 11, I believe.
So it's that much for each pump?
No,
That was for all of them, so it's about 10,000 a pump.
The total, that's correct.
Okay.
I wanna say it was 10 to 15,000 apiece or something like that.
And could that be encompassed in the MSD assessment?
It can, yes, yeah. So, I think what happened is that the homeowners saw that they could be faced with $3,000 to $5,000 worth of additional assessments during the year, and that's what sort of scared them. And I also think it's going to take some time, I hate to say this, but a few more septic tanks are gonna have to fail before people realize how serious it is out there.
But that 3,000 to 5,000 assessment per year is based on the current plan.
That's correct.
It isn't based on an MSD and how that can be spread out over a longer term for that.
That's correct, and if they decide to do that, that's another route for them.
Okay, but have they been presented with that option?
They know that option's available.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
A quick note on the Asset Management Advisory Board meeting this morning. I was just asked to report to you that a recommendation came through to consider purchase of the Riverside Park area. To consider purchase of the Riverside Park area. As you know, that property is not for sale. A proposal was sort of presented to the town. It was taken to the Asset Management Advisory Board and received a positive recommendation, and we'll be bringing that, and along with additional information, back to council for consideration. Know that if Commissioner Weber allows me, I'll be on vacation from July 17th to the 28th. Just kidding. That's
No.
No, you're not.
No.
my 2-week vacation has been scheduled, and so I'll be headed to my parents' house to visit them.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, was that in his contract?
What's that?
Was that in his contract
We
when
didn't
we
vote
hired
it,
him?
no.
I
I
don't
told him
know.
that this morning.
That's what
I
I was
don't think
afraid
so.
of.
Yeah, we can do a resolution.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe.
And finally, I just want to say a quick thank you to police, fire, I don't see Ron here, and Public Works. I think weather played a part, but they just did an outstanding job with 4th of July activities this year, and I certainly appreciate all the men and women that were out there in the rain and the service that they provided. So thank y'all, and I see some of you out there. Please take that back to the departments and let them know how much we appreciate their hard work during the activities that night. And I want to say, I think we timed it. 40 minutes was the time that is that right? 40 minutes from the time the fireworks ended till the time we got everybody out this year. So a lot better than the 3 hours I think it was before. So again, a lot better outcome, and we appreciate the hard work that everybody put into it.
Okay. Where'd Andy go? Are you ready to set up?
While this is coming down, Steve, you might want to move back and mark.
I agree.
Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to provide a little brief introduction to the subject. One of the things that was in the packet, your packets, is this document, which describes the methodology as to how we got to where we are. I started with the EDC back 5 years ago, in July, as indicated. So 5 years with them, and my primary focus when I went down there was to hopefully learn from the people down there and bring us this side of the county closer to that side of the county. As you know, there was some barriers back several years ago. We learned very quickly that our asset, the heart of what we do, tourism, was not on the lips and minds of these people over there. These people being good people, but they're manufacturing people. They were all mill people, and it was difficult to introduce anything that had to do with tourism. To get them recognized, to recognize that tourism is an economic driver. So they had a number of successes. Teleborg and Facebook and other people attracting people in, a number of jobs, but they weren't, we as a board sat down and said, we're not doing as good a job as we could be. We recognized that all the counties around us had gone through a private-public partnership in order to accomplish the economic development within their counties. So this was, they had a report back in 2001 or 4, I can't remember exactly. And they dusted that off, hired Convergent Solutions to come in and take a look at that. The group made a recommendation to the county commissioners. County commissioners approved it, adopted it, and we began a movement toward a private-public partnership. Early this year, we disbanded the EDC. We created a new, what we call an EDA, it's an Economic Development Association. And I'm proud to say I was one of the selected people on that board. And since that time, we put together a structure, put together a budget, we put together all the bylaws, we hired a president, and really, the kickoff time for that was really July 1st, even though it's been project in motion for some time. Well, one of the key aspects now is we're moving into the fundraising aspect of this particular project. And we have here with us today Zeb Weaver, who we've been working with for the last 3 or 4 months, who is responsible for the fundraising side of this project. So we've asked him to come and talk to us about it. What we'd like to do is that we'd like to look at the business proposition and what this means to us here in Lake Lure, to the overall county, and what this means over time as we move forward on this particular project, initiative, or endeavor, whatever you'd like to call it. So I'd like to welcome Zeb to come up and talk to the group, and we'll have question and answers right after we finish up.
Oh, you didn't tell me how to answer questions.
Oh, all right. We'll work on it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for letting me come up here and speak and give a little bit of insight. I'm not going to go into the whole details of our progress, our process, and the whole campaign. Bob really just asked me to come and speak about the value of economic development and what it means back to the community and to the your town. Within our firm, we have 5 principal owners of the company, and one of them, Tom Rawlser, is an economist by education. He is a chartered financial analyst. He's authored several books, and he has modeled a return on investment model that he's evolved over the past probably 20, 25 years. When he was a economy professor back in, I don't know, maybe in the 80s, the local EDC group came to him and said, we want to try to understand and quantify economic development. What is the value? We know we have an impact, we know it does good things, but can you help us quantify economic development? So he developed a process, and for all of our projects, he puts together a organizational value proposition. So I want to kind of walk through some of the results of what that report came up with. The EDC's goal, overall mission, is to stimulate the economy, alleviate unemployment and underemployment. So how do you do that? You do it through job creation. So over the next 5 years, they want to create opportunities for 1,000 primary type jobs. We know through economic models that these primary jobs will create some secondary jobs that will be support type jobs as these other jobs are created. So at the end of the 5-year term, there will be a total of 1,600 jobs. If everything goes well, 1,600 jobs that gets created. There will be approximately $43 million worth of new payroll that gets generated with these new jobs that get created. And then he starts to look at that overall payroll number and starts to break it down. You've got personal income, that's $30 million, disposable income, $25 million. Banks get real excited when they see almost $4 million of bank deposits on an annual basis. That's how banks make their money. Their assets are deposits. So banks start to take notice of the economic impact. The number that really becomes valuable that he drills down to is what he calls personal consumer expenditures. $24 million in economic spending. That's where you and I spend money every day. It's buying a house, it's buying a cup of coffee, it's buying lunch at the local sandwich shop, it's buying a car. Everywhere we spend money every day. Now you've got $24 million worth of cash now that is being circulated in your local community. Some of the areas, I just pulled out a few of the numbers. on an annual basis, $8.5 million in housing. Transportation, that's gonna be car sales, new and used, and some service and maintenance numbers in there as well. $4.5 million. Food, grocery stores, restaurants, they're gonna see over $3 million of new sales. And this is not, running a great ad campaign and stealing market share. This is growing the size of the pie. This is adding to the economic activity within the community. $1 million worth of entertainment. Now, this is only personal expenditures. We don't have a way, we get our information through the Department of Commerce, but we don't have a way to track commercial spending. So, these numbers are conservative when you think about, the energy that gets spent through all the expansion, through, construction projects and all on the commercial side. There's additional spending that we just don't really have a way to calculate. On a county-wide level, all this activity is gonna generate over $1 million worth of sales tax. 16% of the county's revenue comes through sales tax. So they're gonna see $1 million worth of revenue, new revenue, every single year these jobs are in place. And I know the county just went through budget process and they're cutting and trying to figure out how they're gonna make it all work. I know they'd love to see increase in their revenue stream. And then that gets put back into your municipal services, your police, your fire, your public safety, your parks, quality of life initiatives that get spent at a municipal and county level. In 2016, there was a marketing plan that Lake Lure hired out the McConnell Group, and some of the goals that resulted from that really was to increase activity, get people here. Lake Lure, Chimney Rock area thrives on tourism, so they wanted to try to come up with ways to get more people here, and that's really kind of what it's all about. 5% increase in visitation, 5% increase in visiting the website, 2,500 more people coming to the visitor center, distribution of an increase of 50% of your publications, getting the word out, more media tours, more social media. Social media is so big now. I'm not deep into it. I don't know how many of you are, but Facebook and those sorts of things. And if you want to get the word out, that's a great avenue. And then just to be able to collect more data. So this was a study that was done again by Lake Lure. How can we improve things here in our area? In 2012, there was another study that was done by the Arnett Muldrow firm, and they determined through all their studies that 98% of Lake Lure's customers, visitors, tourists, whatever you want to call them, come from outside of Lake Lure. So what's important, here's one more slide from October. What's important to this area is to get people here. Get them here, get them spending money. One of their final recommendations was the town of Lake Lure and Chimney Rock Village will work together with key partners at the county and state level to promote a cohesive identity for both communities. That was in the report of the Audrey Muldrow. The attraction of tourists and customers from outside Rutherford County and North Carolina will be essential for Lake Lure to achieve the goals of their marketing plan. Increase the number of monthly visits, community assets, amenities, and revenue. You shouldn't have to do it alone. As Bob mentioned, in years past, you guys were up here kind of by yourselves, and the rest of the county was off doing their thing. From the brief period that I've been here, things have really appeared to have come together, working together better for the betterment of the entire county. It's not a Lake Lure, it's not a Spindale, it's not a Ruth, it's not a Rutherford, it's not a Fort City, it's the county. So a concerted effort, a group effort to focus on improving the county is the attitude that's being taken on right now. In the benefit to support directly for Lake Lure, supporting economic development, one main goal that the EDC is hoping to do is to really get out, travel more, market this area more, work with site location consultants to get Rutherford County out in the business community, across across the country, across the world even. So in their marketing efforts, they will feature Lake Lure, the Chimney Rock area. This is a great asset. If so many people look to the quality of life initiatives when they are looking to expand a business, if they're looking to relocate, open a new office. Doctors, I don't know if there are any doctors here, great example. The new structure of healthcare, doctors work under the umbrella of the hospital. I've had several doctors tell me, my job is the same anywhere I go. Hours are gonna be the same, pay's gonna relatively be the same, my expectations, my requirements will be the same. What matters is my trailing spouse and my 2.3 kids. What's the quality of life gonna be for them? So, focusing on that quality of life will be important. And Lake Lure and Chimney Rock have a lot to offer with regards to that attraction through the quality of life. Lake Lure will be marketed as a community asset. Lake Lure Attractions, Lodging, and Restaurants will have the opportunity to directly capture expenditures by people employed for the production of new projects. So when there's new construction, there's expansion, new businesses that are coming, opportunities. Anytime you can get people here, there are opportunities to be spending money in your community. The creation of full-time jobs will bring middle and upper class families to the area, will increase opportunities to sell property, solicit retail expenditures, recreate here at the lake on a regular basis. They will also, when they live here, they're gonna have friends and family that will wanna come visit. What are we gonna do on the weekend? Let's go up to the lake, let's go to Chimney Rock, let's go out and shop. In addition to more people, more opportunities to have labor supply. I don't know if you struggle here getting good labor. I would assume you do, because I see it across this county, I see it across the country. We do work all over, and the labor pool is always a challenge trying to find good help. So having more people here, more people living here, more opportunities to have labor. Also increase economic activity and exposure to Rutherford County just across the country in general. It's gonna lead to more business, corporate and business visits, site location consultants. I don't know how many of you are familiar with them. They are hired by organizations to find the 100-acre site, the 100,000 square foot building, access to rail, access to interstate, whatever that company needs. Their job essentially is to eliminate the 100 different communities across the country down to 4 and bring it to that business and say, all right, here are 4 that fit what you're looking for, let's go out and work from there. What you want to do is not be knocked off that list. So engaging these site location consultants, making them aware of the assets in this community will be essential. And lastly, every 100 visitors that come to this community, we've calculated generate $55,000 worth of economic impact in this community for every 100 visitors that come. So you can multiply that out by however many you want to see, how much you want to see it grow. An investment in economic development in this organization is obviously going to help ensure the success of the organization. They've had some great wins throughout the years with additional financial support, additional leadership from the business community, the private sector. There's so much more that can be done. Strengthen Lake Lure as one of the top communities. As we talked about, years ago there was maybe a little bit of strife, but trying to work to overcome all that, and it's definitely come a long way. Being an investor and being involved, you can now have a voice at the table to help guide the ship. Instead of it being a county-run entity, now the business community, the people that live in this community, have a voice to help guide and shape and control the economic development growth, the direction that it wants to be. Government entities, as we all know, they turn over. Administrations turn over on a regular basis. The businesses are the ones that are here for the long term. So it becomes very beneficial to have them both working together in a partnership, equal partnership, to have long-term sustainable plans and sustainable growth. And then happy goodwill community within the community. I think that was the last one. Yep. So that hopefully sums it up a little bit. I know Bob said we could have some question and answer if anybody has any.
Well, could you go back to your slide number, well, I don't know your number, it's about the marketing plan for the Lake Lure for the fiscal year 2016-17.
Yes, sir. The
Right
McCall
there.
Group?
Yeah, now you probably don't have answers at this time, but we're technically out of fiscal year 2016-17. When will numbers be available on whether or not those objectives were achieved? Do you have any idea, or will, I see Mr. Case in here, possibly TDA.
The occupancy numbers have doubled. The tax occupancy where the goal was 5% increase, they've gone up 10%.
Awesome. And we don't know about the others, or who might be able to,
Visitors, we just looked at the website, I can get some new numbers on that, but yes, we're increasing. All of those things are happening. Travel guide production, yes, increasing media visits. Whether it's-
so-
all that's happening.
so we did pretty much achieve those goals.
And so a lot of those things are all going, happening through the TDA.
Excellent.
Michelle,
Thank
Michelle
you.
Stowe works with you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Commerce Group is a contractor with the TDA to do our marketing deal.
Right.
I see the results of the projections for what 1,000 new jobs would do for the county.
Yes, sir.
But I don't see what type businesses you're targeting.
So the jobs that will be targeted are manufacturing, service provider jobs, professional jobs. There's some warehouse and distribution jobs that will be targeted, and some IT jobs are the initial. Those are a lot of the assets that are within the community, so it doesn't make sense to, be trying to bring in opportunities where you just don't have the workforce and you don't have the infrastructure to support that right now.
Where did the 1,000 come from? Is that just a goal that was set, or was there some methodology in coming up with that number?
I talked with, worked with Tom Johnson and Steve Garrison with that. Looking at some of the past history over the past 5 to 8 years of jobs that they brought in, and what they realistically think that they can obtain over the next 5 years.
So it's based on prior
Yes, sir.
results or prior experience?
How about training for all of these? Do you have any training in plan for any of these areas with the local colleges and construction I'm looking at as far as the trades and things like this that
So
right now there's not much support for?
Yeah, their primary initiatives are business attraction, business expansion, working with existing businesses that are here, and then the organizational changes that they just went through with regards to going from a county, a public entity to a private public, and going through that whole process. They don't have a primary initiative to focus on workforce development, but they're gonna be at the table. They need to be at the table. They need to be having those conversations with the business owners, with the school system, even at the elementary school, middle school, high school level, talking with the teachers, working with the counselors, to understand what is missing, what that skills gap is missing, what programs need to be put in place at either the high school level, at the community college level, so you do have this workforce, that's being generated coming out in, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
You mentioned that, and I remember the study, that 98% of the, I guess of the dollars spent in Lake Lure come from outside Lake Lure. Is that outside Rutherford County or just Lake Lure, or do you have that statistic?
So, yeah, it has it all right here. So Rutherford County actually contributes about 2%, so 4%.
Okay,
of
so
the
Lake
county.
Lure, of a dollar spent in Lake Lure, 2 cents comes from Lake Lure and 2 cents come from Rutherford County.
That's what it looks like, yes, sir.
5 years ago.
Right,
Five
right. This was a
We did study.
2012
Is that a percentage, do you think that changes over time, or would that remain pretty well constant?
I can't answer that. I didn't do this study, and I'm not versed in that. I don't know if
Yeah.
Dawn could answer that, better or has, you know, more knowledge on how that changes.
Yeah.
You know, the,
It would seem that's something that would stay fairly consistent.
I would probably think so. You know, what you wanna do is increase the volume of that other
Yeah.
96% and get more spending here.
Okay.
One of the questions I had was, when we think about the amount of real dollars or the percent of total dollars that are actually collected in Lake Lure and sent to the TDA, what creative ways are we talking about that we can take some of those accommodation sales tax dollars and send to the TDA? Is that being discussed or talked about? From the TDA to the EDA?
I'm guessing no, but they're, Don, you could maybe speak up. They're going to, we're pretty sure, they're going to initiate the other penny of the 5, you know, right now they collect 5 cents for occupancy. They're gonna go to that extra penny to the 6 cent. But right now,
But the state legislature and the county on that occupancy tax collection is structured and by state statute, TDA is administering that occupancy tax the way it has to be done from the state. So to go off and work with ED would be something that would have to go to the legislature and the county and everything to approve.
I think you can
But
realistically say that,
TDA will market and promote and bring people heads in beds, my famous saying, butts in seats and feet on the street. That's the TDA's job. ED's job is, like I said, to create jobs and industry and grow economic development from that standpoint, which all helps support the county. And that's why the TDA is supportive of everything that ED is doing, because it will create jobs, which also creates that economic well-being of the whole county as a whole, which creates some more opportunities for internal spending, whether it's housing or restaurants in the county. So to answer your question, ED and TDA are supportive, but we're also mandated with state legislation on how we can do that.
but I don't know if you're getting at it, but right now, TDA, tourism, and ED are going down separate paths, recognizing the need for both and the crossovers. But they are definitely on separate paths. Don's creating a strategic plan. They're operating on a separate plan to achieve this 1,000 new jobs. And at some point in time, the two will merge and intersect. But the one thing that has happened is that the manufacturing folks, and they're recognizing that tourism is a necessary part of the whole economic development structure. It's just they don't know how to bring them together logically at this point in time. Is that fair to say, Don?
Yeah, and with the separate paths and working together collectively when it makes sense.
Right.
Like I said, and we'll be focusing on tourism, asset product development, tourism, and ED will be focusing on economic development, manufacturing, and job creation.
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is that the success of the EDA is gonna depend on funding. And if the pitch back to our community is to fund the EDA, and there's tremendous amount of revenues that are collected here and going to the TDA, and these two organizations are working together, as long as they're working together, and you can see funds flow from the TDA to the EDA, it is coming from our community. So tons of revenue are captured here, sent to the TDA, as long as it's going to the EDA, we are funding the EDA.
And just make sure you understand that the funds that are in TDA that come from this community is coming from the outside traveler that is sleeping here, heads in beds. It's not coming from any of the taxes from the property.
And the equation's changing too. We used to think we're 85-15, then it went to 80-20, and then it's about 60-40 now in terms of the dollars that are collected in the county. So we're not as heavily impacted, or we're less of an impact on the county than we were a while back. Don, that's the numbers that I heard, I think I heard you say.
It's currently 70-30 and it'll be 60-40 in the coming months and years.
That's the projection. It's
That's the
seven,
occupancy tax collection.
Right, 70/30 is the actual number now, and you're projecting that that will go to 60/40.
There's additional hotels and developments and stuff that are taking place on the east side of the county,
Okay.
Western Center and that type of stuff that's still
Okay.
going to change those dynamics.
Is that 60 from here and 40 from the rest, or
Yes,
70/30 now?
70/30. Yeah, that's obviously taxing,
Good.
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Hotels, obviously, tax collection.
Mr. Weaver, in your presentation, could you go back to that first slide that talked about the wages? So on appearances, that looks like fairly low-wage jobs. But in your presentation, there was sort of the feeling that these jobs would translate to people investing into our area. Is the plan gonna get into housing and affordable housing? Because it doesn't, just on appearances, it doesn't look to me as though that would be enough of a living wage for a person to make it.
So the $15 an hour is about $30,000 a year. Your current county average wage is 25. Years past, it was higher. Back in the heyday of the textile industry, it was higher. I would love to say we're gonna target $45,000, $50,000 jobs. Right now, the county doesn't have the workforce structure to support that. So we set a goal that is elevating, but it's not out of reach. So let's bring in some jobs, let's start to raise that average wage and continue to elevate.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much, Zeb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you Wednesday, Thursday, sometime soon.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank
Okay. Okay, we go to item number 6, council liaison reports and comments. Steve, you want to start today?
Sure. Parks and Recreation Board met on July the 6th. We discussed the Luremont trails that are being proposed, which go up behind La Strada and up towards Luremont and then back down to Memorial Highway. Some property owners up there were upset that they had not heard anything about it when they saw some surveyors out in the area. We reassured them, and I want to make sure that it's public knowledge, that we first need to decide where the optimal place is for these trails and what it's going to take to do it. Once we decide that, then we're going to let all the property owners know, so they'll have an option to weigh in on that project, and with any opposition. I'm sorry. So right now, we've had the surveyor out there, we've got some stakes out there in the ground depicting areas that are optimal for it and where we might want to go with those trails. The golf course was down slightly in June, or rounds of golf was, but foot golf was up, and overall for 2017, the totals are up at this time. The Buffalo Creek Park and the trail to Eagle Rock, of course, they're still working on that and working on signage. We have not designated a opening date yet, but it is still being worked on. For you, Ron, there has been no update on the parking lot agreement with the state parks folks yet. So I don't know what kind of pressure we can put on them to hurry it up. They've had that now for, what, 6 months?
At least.
And they haven't done anything with the agreement. We lost Dana Bradley last year as our AmeriCorps volunteer, and we picked up Hallie Zedek. Hallie has been with us a year now, and her term ends in August. She has been a super volunteer and done a great job, and we're working on some kind of recognition for her, like we did similar to Dana. The Flowering Bridge, the footers are going in for the new arbor, and the bridge folks were picking up 1,175 plants that were being donated by Painter's Nursery for their end-of-year plants that they're moving out. And the bridge folks are going to be creating an English country garden. And they will also be installing some security cameras to curb theft. Clint Calhoun from Lake Operations has set up a trail camera, and he's collecting data for a program called North Carolina Candid Critters. He's managed to capture some species out there, but they're looking for anything unique. But he also shared a photo of a mountain camellia, a rare shrub that occurs in Buffalo Creek Park only so far, and has not been discovered anywhere else in Hickory Nut Gorge. So once that trail is done out there might be some unique things to experience. The board briefly discussed the Morse Park plan. We're going to hear more about that tonight. We've got a couple of folks here to discuss contracts for that planning process. Essentially what we're doing is an overall plan for Morse Park to decide where things should go looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. We are going to be building a restroom facility in Morse Park this coming year. We hope to have that done prior to the equestrian games, and this plan is going to help us decide where that facility should go. Something that Shannon and I was talking about briefly before the meeting was that there's been no discussion on how large we want that facility to be or how many accommodations in it, and we need to probably have those discussions, and we could simultaneously be working on some kind of engineer drawings and stuff for the facility itself, and then when we're ready to decide where it goes, we're ready to move quickly. So that's something we need to consider. The Lake Lure Board of Adjustment met on June 27th. There were 2 vacation rental operating permits, and those were both approved. One was on Rock Spring Road, which is out, I guess, in the outer limits of Rumbling Bald area. And then one was at 590 Luther Burbank Drive. There was also a conditional use permit for the Lake Lure Village Resort to where they are now going to be increasing their boat storage and trailers and stuff. There was a variance request from Michael and Sarah Gray, and it was quite a lengthy hearing, but based on the evidence and the testimony presented during the hearing, the case was dismissed due to the fact that a variance was no longer necessary. It was a moot point. Some evidence came out for our zoning administrator or code enforcement officer to say, he said if I'd have had that earlier, they would have never had to file for the variance. At any rate, Mr. Gray has asked me to ask the council to task the Zoning and Planning Board to study the definition of structure versus the definition of retaining wall, which are the 2 definitions basically when they were applied to his project. That's what Mr. Burton used to determine that a variance was needed. Mr. Gray felt that those 2 definitions should probably be reviewed. So I don't know if the rest of the committee feels that way or not.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Make a motion.
Okay.
I haven't looked at that in a number of years, but I remember it being an issue as to whether or not the wall was filled or.
Well, what brought it up, if I can help on that, is a retaining wall is a structure by definition, but what makes it a permanent structure is on the top, he put concrete on the top. and that made it a permanent structure, or made it permanent, which called it a structure which would have required a variance. Had he not had the concrete and it had gravel or grass or whatever, then it would have been a retaining wall and it would not have required a variance. So he has asked that we ask the zoning and planning board to review those two definitions to determine if any kind of a change is needed. So,
I'll make a motion that we, task the zoning and planning board with, studying this question and come back to us with a recommendation.
Motion made by John, do we hear a
I'll second.
Second by Bob. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
aye.
It's unanimous.
And that's the end of my report.
Very good. John?
The Zoning and Planning Board met on June 20th at 9:30. Steve Norrie was the property director with Lake Lure Village Resort. He made an application with the Board of Adjustment to expand a pre-existing outdoor boat and small vehicle storage area located on a property owned by Lake Lure Village Resort. That use has been recognized and is categorized as a non-customary accessory use, requiring the granting of a conditional use permit by the Board of Adjustment in the R3 zoning district. That was discussed at length and ultimately approved to, that the applicant should put his plans together and take them to the BOA for review. Another business, Evergreen Horizons, is a company that had purchased the former Lake Ridge subdivision and are the current owners of Lot 25 within that subdivision, known as Sunset Reserve at Lake Lure. The project manager was here and requested that a change to the buffer requirements is noted on the recorded plat for Lot 25. This lot is part of a conservation subdivision, and the common open space amenities are subject to a 50-foot buffer area, which is greater than the buffer area would be if it was not a common amenity. The applicant wanted to eliminate the buffer on Lot 25 only and to keep the remaining buffers as originally approved throughout the community. Evergreen took the position that the removal of this buffer would not impact the open spaces area or adversely affect the enjoyment of the neighbors. There was considerable discussion of that, and it was noted that the Zoning and Planning Board during the preliminary plat review had moved to remove this same 50-foot buffer area for other lots, lots 14, 15, and 16, for similar reasons on March 13th, 2013. So the request was sent for the to the Development Review Committee for review on June 9th, and no comments or concern were noted by the Development Review Committee. Motion was made and passed that the 50-foot buffer could be removed from Lot 25 and Lake Lure or Lure Ridge subdivision Phase 2 and replaced with the conditions shown on the foundation survey dated June 26, 2017, and that was passed. Mr. Baldwin gave a planning projects update, and the meeting was adjourned.
The ABC Board approved their budget for the coming year. And we learned sadly at that meeting that Bill Keller had gone to hospice, and as we all know, subsequently is no longer with us. The appointment to the open seat on the ABC Board will be filled next month. So if there are folks that are interested in serving on that board, you would need to talk with staff and put in an application to serve or to fill that seat. That's all that's new really with the ABC Board. The Lake Advisory Board had some very active discussion of several special topics. One being their concern about dual permitting of commercially permitted boats. In which case, a commercially permitted boat cannot tow tubes or skiers, etc. And some boat owners who have those commercial boats have been given, although it was not addressed in our regulations, they had been allowed to also purchase a personal permit so that if the owner is operating the boat, they could tow. So there was quite a bit of discussion of the pros and cons related to this. It was then tabled until the Lake Operations Director is present because Dean was on vacation, and he had made a recommendation that these dual permits be allowed, but that on the private part of the operation, it would have to be the owner and the owner's spouse operating the boat in order to be towing. And there was also discussion about whether there should be sleeves on the boat so you could change the permit, and problems related to knowing who's driving the boat and is it being misused. So that one's still on the table. The next one was the review of the lake use regulations concerning towing use for commercially permitted livery boats. And this would include boats that are being used by vacation renters, etc. Chairman Helms explained that at the Marine Commission meeting, commissioners asked that the LAB consider revising the lake use regulations to allow commercial livery boats to tow. That is to tow tubes, skiers, and so forth. There was a lot of discussion about not wanting renters towing for safety reasons. Concern that we don't enforce that or make enforcement difficult. A number of other statements regarding it, and they finally came to a conclusion and agreement to stand with the current regulations and do not allow livery boats to tow as current regulations state. And it was moved and seconded, and it carried unanimously. Within the board members' areas of responsibility, there was some discussion primarily of fishing. That fishing has been really good up until July, and the heat and so forth in the lake has just really made fishing the last couple of weeks not very good at all. It was also brought to their attention that some boats were seen dropping nets and pulling in nets pretty well loaded and I believe it was primarily shad, which are our feeder fish in the lake that we pay for. And it's believed that that's not legal, and we need to put out the word that they'll be looking for that as a problem. Also, Commissioner Weber stated at that last month, the LAV briefly had mentioned the Graylogs Cove slips and stated that in 2007, the town issued an order, and based on that, believes that the town should issue a notice of violation, that it has been in violation since 2004, that they are being considered as 8 mooring spaces, and they were only allowed to have 4. But there were supposed to be pilings put in there. In fact, at one time, I recall, the 2 small lots each could have a dock only, not boat slips. And originally could not park boats there overnight. And then the ordinance changed, and apparently they were allowed to moor a boat on each side of that pier or dock. But now, in between the docks, I don't think boats are currently moored there, but there is anticipation that a development is advertising or presenting those boat slips as an amenity to a neighboring development. So all of that's going to be checked out and addressed, but currently they are in violation, and that will be checked out with the town manager and enforcement. And that's all.
Yeah, and I discussed that with Ron today, and so it's in his hands,
Okay.
so.
On the easy one, the Utilities Board did not meet this month because it fell on the 4th of July, so
That was good.
we can keep that shorter for you.
Nothing like brevity. Okay. The next, item number 7 is the public comment. Nobody signed up, but as I always do, is if anybody would like to come forward, let me know. Seeing none, I'll move on. Item number 8 is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed with that, I discussed a couple of amendments to the June 13 minutes. We've got 5 sets of minutes in that consent agenda. So page 59 and 60, and Andy, I believe, sent an email out to everybody today, and make sure you got it. Is on page 59 where we talked about the discussion of the Flowering Bridge, was that the council did show a general consensus and agreement that the Flowering Bridge did not owe any money back to the town, and I felt that that statement was important to be in the minutes. And she added that, and then on page 69, at the end of the sewer easement, that paragraph, a copy of the easement is attached and made part of the record, and it wasn't here, so she sent everybody a copy of that, and it's gonna be in the record version. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of those 2 amendments. So I guess I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the amendments noted for the June 13th, 2017 regular meeting minutes.
I'll
Is there a
second that.
Seconded by Bob. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Item number 9, unfinished business. Duke Energy franchise renewal, first reading. Ron, you want to bring us up to date on that?
page 73.
As you know, we're dealing with a franchise agreement that was from 1957. They're good for 60 years. Duke Energy contacted the town to discuss the renewal of the franchise agreement for an additional 60-year term. That agreement is attached for your consideration. North Carolina General Statutes state that approval of franchise agreement ordinance requires 2 readings, so that's why your numbers are the same on your heading there, ordinance number. You will have the same ordinance number for your other meeting as well. So as you know, Craig DeRue, who's with us here tonight, presented the proposal to you at your last meeting. You were able to answer or ask and answer questions. And so the revised ordinance is in your packet. And again, the only revision I think that was made discussed the cellular tower language, so y'all saw that at your last meeting. Again, myself or Craig will answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, under this House Bill 589, our contract, this go around, if you would come up, Craig, for us. Just want to clarify this
Sure.
email we got today about House Bill 589 says that our contract now expire in 2022.
Yes, sir.
Then it will be a 10-year contract from that point, every 10 years.
It has been a 10-year contract before, and you will have the option for a 10-year contract when this expires in August of 2022.
Okay. Just want to clarify that point. It's not us, where's the 60-year comment come in as far as?
Totally separate issue. One is a franchise that we have with 330 some odd municipalities across the state of North Carolina. So that gives us the right to do business within your municipality, like I talked about last month. The our agreement to purchase the output of your hydroelectric plant is a totally separate issue.
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify that for the audience.
Okay, any other questions?
I will say, just as a note, you saw in your packet, there's also an email from Pangea who took a look at the contract, made some recommendations. And Mr. DeBrew may want to speak on this, but there are agreements in place that address most of those concerns.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding that.
Yeah, I read all of this thoroughly a couple of times, and I saw the responses to the Pangea questions. And I have no questions, really.
Okay, do I hear a motion to?
I'll make a motion
On the
that we
first-
go ahead and accept the contract as written.
Granting the franchise to Duke Energy Carolinas.
That's correct.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
So
We'll see
we
you
have
next
to-
month.
Yeah, we have to do that again next
Yeah.
month, yeah.
Okay, item number 10, new business. Okay, amend the salary schedule to include hourly pay rate for part-time positions. Again, we did get an update mid-afternoon. I think everybody should have that. It was in their box. Everybody have that? Separate page, okay.
Would you like to let me just give a
Sure,
brief background?
sure.
During the June 13th, 2017 meeting, you know that you adopted a salary schedule for all full-time classified work positions. What we discovered last week is the auditor is requiring the town to adopt a salary schedule for part-time positions, which is very unique. I think Anita checked with a lot of cities, and we can just not find an example of this anywhere. Hourly pay rates for current and part-time positions in the past have been determined by the department head, as you know, and they've been budgeted. However, we're dealing with the new auditor, and we're going to try to meet their request. It's $2,080 per year, but firefighters are calculated on 2,756 hours per year, and police officers on 2,184 hours per year. So what we ended up doing on the first draft was calculated all at 2,080. So we've gone back, revised that for you, and that's what the new sheet is doing.
That doesn't look like it changed the numbers. It just changed the position of those.
That's correct. The police officer moved from 1598 to 1522.
Right.
Firefighter moved down quite a bit to 1136. But your utility maintenance technician and the communication specialist
Remained the same.
Same.
Right.
Any other questions? No?
I'll make suggest a approve ordinance, let's see, adopt the revised salary schedule for the town of Lake Lure. I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Mary Ann.
Good.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, item number 10B, communication specialist job description.
That'll change.
Anybody have any, you want to just cover that? I mean, it's been,
Sure.
it's been,
During the adoption of the budget or the budget process, town council approved funding for a part-time communication specialist position. You asked that we prepare a job description, distinguishing features of the class, illustrative examples of work, et cetera. We've included that in your packet for you. It was proposed that that be placed on salary grade 27, as Commissioner Weber just pointed out. Because it's on the part-time salary schedule, that is now gone. So just know that you're actually setting that for that range of $23.61 to $35.45. And I will say that that was based on research that Anita did for market rates for this type of position. Working with examples from other municipalities, again, we finalized that job description, and again, it's presented here for your review.
And the job title, communication specialist, is the best title for this type of work as opposed to public information specialist or public information officer?
We think it came the closest to accomplishing what you asked us to do.
Okay.
all right. Any other questions or comments? Do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt that description and pay rate.
Do I hear a second?
Second it.
Second by Mary Ann. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Okay, item number C, the Chamber of Pickering Neck Gorge Dirty Dancing Festival. Do you, I don't know what we're gonna do, just recognize the fact that we're gonna have one?
Well,
I mean, there's no.
well, I had, it was a surprise to me last year, and I think I've shared this with Kevin. I know I've spoken to Wynn Hardy about this. It was a surprise to me last year when I came down that morning to see parking area blocked off and people being charged for parking. And that's our main public parking lot, for which we have never charged anything. And then I questioned the legality of us that owns that property allowing a nonprofit such as the Chamber to make money off of it, which could inhibit our citizens and residents who are accustomed to having that free parking. So I had asked back in April, I sent Mr. Morgan a message and all, and discussed it with him earlier. And so I wanted to make sure that we're on good legal footing there. But I also understand from Kevin and the letter that there will be ample free parking still available for the town marina and boat tours. And there will be parking spaces open in the front and behind Town Hall for police, fire and emergency, and other town staff during the event. And some parking spaces open available in front of the visitor center. And I assume, Kevin, that all the boat trailer spaces would be open for people to put their boat trailers that come down. So yeah, I have no problem with that, and after receiving the attorney's information on that, so.
Okay. There's no action required. Just wish you luck, Kevin. Do you want to come, do you have something to say? You look like you want to raise your hand. Yeah, come on. Come on up.
you've all seen the letter, and not to, belabor it or read it, but this is, I think, the largest and most attended event we have in the Gorge. And over the years, it hasn't always been a great experience. And as a result of a private enterprise operator from the West Coast, the far West Coast, we felt it would be better if we took that event local, and the chamber did that two years ago. And as part of that, we've tried to address some of the long-standing issues with major events like that in the Gorge. And probably the most significant one has been the traffic and parking and congestion. And we've worked with the town, the local police force. We employ off-duty officers now to do traffic control, and we've expanded the areas, not just here in and around the municipal complex, but also in some private open field areas where we now have off-site parking. And I think the combination of all that has really alleviated. Last year, I think most of the citizens would say it alleviated the majority of the historic congestion that occurred down here. And so we hope, in the future, and this year, again, we're going to be having our volunteers directing the parking activities. We'll have the police directing traffic, and we'll try to keep things flowing so the citizens, aren't tied up in traffic for long periods of time. But, and we hope that this is an expanding event, incidentally, and this year we are renting not just the park, but also the pavilion and this chamber here. So we're, the town will be deriving some income from the rental of those facilities. And I think I tried to point out in my letter how large events like this can really benefit the economic development in the town, and that translates into, I think, some benefits to the town in terms of tax revenue and attracting future residents, and all those things that events do. So that was my other purpose for sending that to you, just so we communicate like that.
Keeping in mind our new capital improvement plan and all, and you're looking at the expansion of this, are we looking at building parking decks in the next 4 or 5 years?
I don't know.
I hope not.
Something tells me in Lake Lure that's not.
Good.
Plenty of vacant property here that we can deal with.
Good.
Yeah. No, I think this would be good.
Thanks.
Okay. And I'll
Thank
answer
you,
any
Kevin.
questions anybody has, but.
No, we appreciate your efforts.
Good, very good. Thanks, Kev.
I think parking tunnels would be more appropriate.
Okay.
Okay, item
That'll
number
work.
10D, the Morris Park Recreation Plan, professional services contract.
Shannon.
Again, Shannon?
Earlier, I think Commissioner Weber gave a nice summary of what we're trying to do. Some of the questions you think about: what are the highest and best use of Morris Park? We just heard a festival. Do we have room there for that festival and additional festivals into the future? What type of recreation facilities would we like to see added in Morris Park? Which ones need to be redeveloped? Which ones are not being used that much now? And if redeveloped, could be used to a greater extent. Are we trying to serve those who are visitors? As you heard, there's a lot of visitors coming. Or are we trying to use that to serve the residents? Where are we going to place the public restrooms? Are we seeking to accommodate weddings, more weddings in the future to help the local economy? There are a lot of questions, and since 1992, we haven't had a plan for Morris Park that addressed all the issues that we've been working on. That 92 plan came on the heels of a strategic plan initiative that the town undertook in conjunction with Western Carolina University. Luther Smith actually did the drawing, and it's here somewhere. I just can't find it. I think Tommy Hartzog has it somewhere at the Chamber of Commerce. But anyway, we haven't had a plan since '92, and the effort is trying to take inventory of what's out there and then trying to find a highest and best use for the property that's out there. There's some things we know we need to deal with. Bob was
part of the team, and so was Ed when we created the wetlands enhancement plan. Fantastic job handling stormwater, but we left a nice hump out on the edge of the field. Is this the time to try to find a way to do away with that hump with field? If we can develop a plan and we can one time ask for permission from FEMA to do some work, maybe this is the time we use some of our dredging material and finally do away with that hump and create some usable space. So a lot of issues that need to be addressed. There's a lot of information in prior plans. The 2007 comprehensive plan has suggestions in it. The recreation trails and open space plan that Ed and the Parks and Rec Board worked on and surveyed the community has information in it. The most recent comprehensive plan update has recreation information in it. Do we need to survey again? Trying to find a way to pull all those ideas together and then hand those off to someone who's can help us professionally design and spatially locate those uses, and then accommodate the restrooms and schedule all that and get it moving is going to be key, and it's going to have to be done in short order. So working with the Parks and Rec Board, we've lined up 2 consultants for your consideration, and but I'm going to stop short, and I'm going to ask Jim and Ed to come and just speak with you. They recommended these 2 consultants be approved, but I think Ed and Jim can converse more with you about what the Parks and Rec Board has been working on and what they have in mind, and then we'll ask the consultants to come up and answer any questions you may have about their scope of work and their price. So if Jim and Ed will come up and just maybe brief the board on your thoughts.
Shannon, do you want to wait, or you want to touch briefly on the revised timeline?
Just briefly, the schedule, the plan was to be finished end of December, and we went back to consultants based on feedback I received from Commissioner Weber and Commissioner Cameron, and they have pulled that in another 30 days so we can get there mid-November with the final plan. So they have adjusted that scope, and they can discuss that with you just in a minute.
Thanks. Okay.
All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm Jim Walters, and I'm the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Board. On my left is Ed Dittmer, who's the former chairman and the current vice chairman of the Parks and Recreation Board, and we know each other as the Iowa guys. Yeah. So.
And Navy. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we've got a lot in common. Yeah. But the impetus for this kind of started maybe 3 or 4 months ago when we got a presentation from the de facto head of the pickleball contingent in Lake Lure, Jim Stewart, who wanted to make sure that we understood that pickleball was the fastest growing sport in the country and probably the fastest growing sport in Lake Lure, and that we needed more than the 2 courts that we've got out here in conjunction with the tennis courts. And at the time, one of those wasn't usable because there was a big pothole behind the baseline on one of the tennis courts. And it was even a danger of some measure to the pickleball players. So we started to think then in terms of what do we do to fix this problem so that more people can play pickleball. And without a whole lot of measuring and rearranging things out there, we could get 6 pickleball courts into the, roughly into the area where we have 2 tennis courts. And we'd have to move a couple of things that are associated with the playground to do that, but it wouldn't really be a whole lot. So we started to take all of that into the hopper, if you will. Melody Potter worked with us to get some estimates on what it would take to fix the tennis courts, and it ranged anywhere from $64,000 to $100,000. And we thought, you know, if we're going to spend that kind of money, we really need to take a step back, look at this entire park, and kind of develop a plan for where we're going to go in the future. Melody and I engaged Shannon at that time, and he put us in touch with people who are experts, and we've taken it from there with the idea that we can formulate a definition of the needs, and once we know what those needs are, come up with a program for execution. And the two contractors that we're proposing to you are with us tonight and can probably give you more information if you have specific questions about that. But Ed, do you have any?
Yeah, I just want to add, we did a Parks, Recreation, Trails, and Open Space plan for Lake Lure back in 2008. We've updated a couple times. It needs revision, but it was an overall view. It wasn't specific to individual parks. It essentially listed what we had and what we want to do in the future, sort of thing, but didn't lay out a specific plan for each park. These sorts of plans are now required by grant suppliers, people that want to. There's a great competition out there for dollars for Parks and Recreation dollars from grant agencies, such as the State Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. If you don't have a plan, you're in a hole. So we need to be doing that for each of our parks, and Morse Park is our premier park here in the town. It gets the most use. It is the center of attention for the town center area, and we really need to have a plan in place and follow that plan in our future planning. And we need to look at all what is there, what we plan in the future, and where we're going to put it all. And then hopefully get your approvals and go for grants to, we've been very successful. We've gotten almost $1 million in grants from various agencies for trail development. And we hope to be able to start getting plans or getting money for developing our parks. We did get a grant from the Legacy Foundation of the hospital, Rutherford Hospital, of $45,000 to do paving in Morse Park, the pathways. For those of you who have not been out there, they're very nice now. You no longer have to walk in muddy footpaths, and we hope to get eventually everything paved out there and then expand the pathways in Morse Park. But that's the sort of thing that we want to get grants and not rely upon taxpayer dollars. And the money is available out there, but you have to be prepared and offer where you are at and follow through with what you plan to do. And we've had a good record on that, and that's why we've been able to get Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grants. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Before we ask consultants and contractors to come up, I just want to give a brief introduction of each. Kathleen Osta is with Vital Clarity, and their expertise is working with groups and helping groups reach consensus, finding appropriate priorities for the ideas that the groups come up with. So that's Kathleen's background and expertise. As you recall, she helped us with the comprehensive plan update process, which town council adopted. So that's Kathleen. The other consultant is Fred Grogan. Fred is with Equinox Environmental, and they basically did the plan for the park when we did the wetlands enhancement project, and they also recently worked with the town to develop the Town of Lake Lure Village of Chimney Rock pedestrian connector that we recently applied for a grant for. We didn't get, but they did the plan that was submitted, did a great job with that. So Kathleen will be helping us work with Parks and Rec Board, with perhaps additional stakeholders, taking the information that we have, using that with that group to develop ideas, reach consensus and priority. Then those ideas will be passed on then to Equinox that to take those and see how we can place those on the property that we have, getting back to highest and best use. With that having been said, I'd like for them each to come up and kind of just briefly tell you what their role is and their part in this process. So Kathleen and Fred, if you'll come up. Kathleen, if you'll start, I think that would be appropriate, and then let Fred take it from there.
Howdy. So the process and the part that I play in it is taking the information you already have, because you all have been working and thinking about Morse Park for a while, capturing that and figuring out a way to translate it into some way to conduct some input from the community, to get the residents and the visitors to have their input so that they can, one, respond to the priorities you see and also say what else they'd like. So it's a back and a forth kind of a process. Then we'll, as Shannon said, feed that information to Fred so that he can come up with some kind of a plan, and down the road, citizens again would have an opportunity to have some input on their impressions of that. So building a lot though on what you already have, and Shannon alluded to that, and then getting some updated input so that you really have current information.
So thanks again. I'm Fred Grogan. I'm with Equinox. We had the pleasure of working, as Shannon mentioned, on the first phase of Morse Park with the constructed wetland. We think that was a good success, and we look forward to the opportunity to build on that success. Some of the things we've been charged with in our scoping process that we've been going through is really ensuring that we have the most flexibility of use in Morse Park. I think we've heard that from a programming perspective. And then you guys have certain elements that you do want to see, bathroom being number one. So we did accommodate, as Commissioner Weber mentioned, somewhat of an accelerated schedule so that we can ensure that we have at least the restrooms located and sited properly in the proper location. That does hold with it, though, a certain commitment that we will require from the town and from the Parks Board, and then to ensure us that we gain, first off on an accelerated program, what those elements are you want to see in the park. First off, we need to make sure that out of all those plans that have been conducted in the past, that we boil those down and know exactly what we're going to be doing with that park. And also, any kind of restrictions that may apply out at Morse Park. Shannon mentioned the hump, and I think we're all familiar with the hump. That was part of our original plan when we did the constructed wetland. Essentially, we were really held to certain elevations that we could bring in fill material in order to install that pipe to convey that stormwater to the constructed wetland. So we look forward to eliminating that. And I think that's going to imply that we need real good feedback from your floodplain administrator to really let us know what we can do with that property and how much material we can bring in. Not only to eliminate that hump and make a better use of the space, but also to site the facility and make sure that we have positive drainage across, any kind of element that we do put on that park. So we need to make sure that's in place.
That's the number one thing I see there is that this drainage has many low spots in it.
That's right.
And that pipe needs to go on out to the river if it has to, but it needs to get out of there. But biggest thing there is that, are you familiar with the floodplain regulations, and are you gonna be able to get these answers? I was just looking here, you got about 4.5 months.
That's right.
For all this work. It's gonna take weekly communication to get this done, and then also the design actually of the restrooms, meeting with everyone, getting that worked out. We're expecting results in 4.5 months.
Yep.
Because you've got to get this construction started in the dead of winter, which is going to be tough enough, so we just don't need any delays on the front end.
It's a good question, and our charge with this particular scope of services for the scope that we've negotiated and the fees that we've negotiated is to get a plan that has this site of this restroom identified in that time frame. The construction documents or anything that comes with actually constructing that facility needs to run somewhat in parallel with our efforts.
I had that conversation with Shannon on that.
Good. And so I think, part of that objective of November being the date that we have this plan executed and we know where the facilities are going to go, allows enough time to then move into some construction documents potentially and construction bidding, and implementation starting around January.
Well, and that's
we're
what we
hoping.
need. We need that number of stalls, and then also we need
Correct.
the footprint, because that footprint needs to be represented on what you have, as well as an elevation that won't be flooded.
That's correct. So floodplain is a very, we're very acutely aware of that from working with the previous plan, with the stormwater wetland.
Of course, you realize the state doesn't get back to you for about 90 days.
Absolutely.
So it gives you about a month to start getting that information.
And we're gonna be relying very heavily on the town and the floodplain administrator to provide us those thresholds.
Okay, can we
Has
expect,
that begun?
No, that will begin as soon as we enter a contract.
can we expect a report next month to see where that stands?
Let's do it.
'Cause this-
It's, the question is, can the town respond and enter that with the floodplain administrator and start that communication with FEMA?
I have concerns that we're starting a planning process not knowing if we could do it.
Well, you can do a building, you just have, it's the elevations around that building that he's addressing. The building.
Well, I'm
has
just
to be-
wondering why we haven't been on the floodplain issue before now.
Well, we have. We've discussed with Clint that requirement, and he's advised us that, yes, we can still build there, anywhere out there, but we gotta build it in accordance with floodplain requirements and regulations. And that's something they'll have to all figure out how that'll work, but we
Sure.
have discussed that.
Yeah, and we've known that area is in the floodplain.
Right.
That's common knowledge among staff, I think.
Well, all of this is in the floodplain.
Yes,
Right.
correct. We have now Brad Burton, who's a certified floodplain manager on staff. And I think what Fred is saying, and what I'm hoping to hear from Ron, is that if we pull the trigger on this, whatever staff time we need to dedicate to this project, we'll throw at it like needs to be, so that we can get it done according to the timeline that's been set. It's an aggressive timeline, and we won't make it unless staff is ready to commit the time to get this done. And this should be a first priority if these bathrooms need to be put in accordance with our schedule.
Well,
So,
We'll make that decision the first day he's on vacation. So, no problem.
what other questions can we try to answer for you?
Okay, one is, when our pickleball group was here, there was discussion about turning the tennis courts into pickleball or adding additional courts. In the budget, we had to actually cut the money needed to repair or resurface the tennis courts. And maybe that was in part because we were not sure what the future of those might be. But in the discussion, it also came up that if the tennis courts were replaced by something else and moved to the golf course, that had some implications for enhancing operations at the golf course. And my question is, are we focused tunnel vision on Morse Park, or are we looking at what needs to be in Morse Park, and are there some other places that it would be beneficial to place some of these amenities or activities?
I think we may have some recommendations if we decide to move something, or in the process, it's better to move a project, but the scope of this is just gonna be Morse Park. Yes, the other things will be taken into consideration, but as far as the land area and the focus, it will just be Morse Park.
Well, I hope some of these other issues will at least be on the fringe and be considered.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of creating a parking lot when we have these discussions, and the things that we know won't be located out here will go on a list, and perhaps we'll try to find the best location for some of those uses in the future. So we'll have a way to try to deal with that.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, Fred, can you cite a couple of projects that you have performed these same services for that might be in the surrounding area that we might be familiar with?
Sure, we've done a number of Greenway and Park type projects. New Belgium and Asheville is one of the most recent projects we've completed. There's a trailhead component and a public use space along with the entire site of design of that project. That's probably one of the most recent. We're currently working in Black Mountain on the Greenway project. One of the
Try to
larger
speak into the microphone because some
Sorry.
people can't hear you out there.
We're currently working in Black Mountain on a Greenway project. And of course Morris Park. We did the work on that years ago. So
Where was the one in Asheville at?
New Belgium Brewery is in Asheville. It's
Okay.
in the River Arts District downtown.
Yeah.
Pretty high profile project.
All right, thank you.
Speaking of private-public partnerships, that was one of those projects.
Thank you. And I'm very familiar with Kathleen's work through the comp plan. I make a motion that we approve these contracts, these two contracts, and proceed with the process.
I'll go ahead and second it. Oh. Go ahead, John.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, and that's to authorize the town manager
Yep.
to execute all necessary documents.
Glad you clarified that.
Yep, thank you.
Before he goes on vacation.
Before he goes on vacation. Yeah,
Get them started.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we
Any
gotta
further
pay.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, that was with the revised schedule of November, is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, item number E, the ABC Store Walkway, construction contract and budget amendment. I guess you're, is it
Shannon.
still you,
yeah.
Shannon?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the walkway.
The walkway. Okay, last fiscal year, we had the discussion about extending the walkway from Jack London to Harris Road, which is the road that runs up by the Strip Center. We had programmed $30,000 for that project, and that was our best guess as to what we thought a concrete sidewalk would be. I did solicit some bids from Tom Gorman, I believe, who does some of the pavers for the Flyer Bridge, and he's also done a little work for us. That bid came in over $50,000 to basically extend the sidewalk like we currently have that you see around town up 6474. So we RFP'd that project, and we specifically asked for concrete, for color added to the concrete, similar to what you see outside around Town Hall, and for it to be stamped to mimic the sidewalks that we have that everyone loves. And so that pretty much is a custom type job. And so based on that, we had three bids, round numbers, 45, 46. I think the other one was 48 or 49. It's in your packet. So the lowest responsible bidder was Tomlin. We did ask Tomlin to come in and let's talk about ways we could possibly reduce some cost. And some of the things we learned is that if we can find another stamp, a store-bought stamp that's already made, that's commonly used, and we don't custom make a stamp that mimics our walkway, that we probably could cut around $7,500, $8,000 off that 45. So now we're looking at $37,500. We did have a discussion with him about, well, what if we cut out all the customization and just go with bare bones sidewalk? Round numbers, you're probably looking at $30,000. But what we can't do in this process is choose Tomlin and then turn to Tomlin and say, we want standard sidewalk because the way it was RFP'd. If we want that number that low, we're going to have to go through the RFP process again and let those other contractors bid on that sidewalk, and just go through that process again. That's, by state law, there'd be a substantial change. If we take out the color and we do away with the stamp, we would need to rebid that project.
You began by saying you talked to the fellow who did the blocks, the
Yes, that's right,
pavers.
that's right.
And that was how much?
I think it's about 55,000.
Okay. Did we get any other bids on that? I'm just thinking this is gonna be there forever.
Yes.
And we can walk on concrete. We did to get in here, and it didn't hurt my feelings.
Right.
But if we want this to be a continuation of a walk that's gonna be here forever, I don't know if we want to take bids on what we'd like to have. It might cost us 50,000 or maybe 55. But if we can't get what we settle for less than 35, do we want to take something that wasn't what we wanted to save 20?
Sure. I think my response to that would be, it seems like the middle ground would be to stay with the color and to find a stamp that's acceptable, and that seems to be the middle ground. That's in between the Cadillac and the Datsun that they no longer make. But that's how I probably would answer that.
Well, I've seen a lot of broken concrete walkways, after time, where the pavers can take the give and take and shift, and that's just my thinking. There's some things I want to go the cheap way on, and there's some things I want to do right.
Shannon, would it make sense to rebid the project with the 3 different levels? Or did we have 2 levels in the first bid?
No, first bid, it was just one standard. And that was, we specified the color after we did our research because we knew that would match. We specified the pattern because the pattern was basically, they have a way of taking a photograph of what's out there, and then they take that and they can create an imprint, and they can create a mold from what's already out there. So it'd be almost not an exact match, but a close match using poured concrete, and it would save us about, it seems like it's gonna save us about 10,000. If you step back from that, you save another 8. If you don't go with a custom stamp, you go with a store-bought stamp.
It sounds like it would make sense to rebid it at 3 different levels to excuse me, plain concrete sidewalk, the one with the die and a standard stamp,
Yes.
and then the pavers.
What you'll find is that, and I even ran into this as I was soliciting contractors to bid, they'll tell you, well, we don't do that, but we do this. So it may be that you may get a bid from somebody who just does pavers, and that's all that bid will be. And so you may have to mix and match.
Right, it may not
your
be the
proposals.
same three
That's right.
bidders,
That's
but we
right.
could get 3 bids from pavers.
And, it looks like we may have time to do some of that, because based on the schedule, I think we're trying to get that in before the remodeling is done, and that gives us a little time. We also found out from Tomlin Concrete, they would rather work when cars aren't buzzing up and down the road anyway because of the safety issue. But they will. They'll work tomorrow if you want to.
So it sounds like it's a consensus to go 3 basic bids again, and then 1 additional for pavers, and not hold their feet to the fire. They can bid all or part of that project.
We can do that.
We also need to keep in mind that only 30,000 was budgeted for this, and there's only like 27,000 of that 30,000 remaining. So
it'd be good to then requote it.
think at this point, the board would need to reject the bids.
Yes.
And then we can then rebid, is that?
I'll make that motion that we reject the existing bids and ask for it to be rebid with the option of pavers, and that the bid be listed that you can bid all or part.
Yeah, and you're right, they can get all apart, they don't have to.
We can do that. And with 3 options, standard concrete, and then with a standard store-bought stamp,
Yeah.
with color in the concrete, and then with pavers. So we get all 3 options.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do
we
we hear
can
a
do that.
second?
Second.
Second by John.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Okay.
Shannon.
And now the second one there, we don't have to worry about that right now.
Right.
That's a transfer of funds.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, now we have to go to item E3, which is,
Steve's, he's got the
Yeah.
section.
Closed session, yeah.
yep, we got the closed session.
Oh, you want me to do,
Just read it once and then, it's for the record.
yeah.
Right.
Make a motion that we enter into closed session in accordance with General Statute 143-318.11, sub A, sub 3, for attorney-client privilege.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.